Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It's Matt Newton down here at Penrith Golf Hub, and we're going to test a few fairway woods today, and it's the Cobra and it's the RAD Speed standard 3 wood against the RAD Speed Big Tour. So two different 3 woods, look a very similar size of head, got the rails on, everything like that. A little bit of difference of weight in positioning. So we're going to test both these and see if there's a difference between these two clubs, both off the ground and also off a tee, and see potentially if one might be a better club for you in terms of launching off the fairway, or if you're looking for maybe that driver replacement for off the tee. Okay, so we're going to start off with the standard RAD Speed fairway wood. It's a 3 wood, 14.5 degrees that it comes as standard. Obviously, we've got a changeable neck sleeve, as you do with the Big Tour as well, but I'm going to set it at 14.5 in the same. And we're going to use the Motori F1 shaft in both of these clubs to keep this test as even as we can. So we're going to hit 5 shots with each off the ground first, and then we're going to hit a further 5 shots with each off the tee. And that's a really nice opening shot. That plucked off the ground very nicely. So the standard one is a little bit more geared of that traditional shape, is what Cobra is saying. A little bit ease of launching the golf ball. So I think this is where a lot of golfers may just struggle a little bit when the 3 wood is off the ground, depending on the lie. It's sometimes hard for a golfer to get that ball flight. You know, if a golfer doesn't have as much speed, obviously hitting the least amount of loft off the ground out of all the clubs in the golf bag, it can sometimes be quite a difficult thing to launch. So this is a little bit more, what Cobra's saying is a little bit more of a higher launching, faster off the club face. And that's really nice. That is pretty much identical to that first shot I've hit there, to be honest. So look-wise, down by the golf ball, as I say, great shape, black gloss finish, just that little bit of lime green on those edges. Sits a fraction toed in for me, which again will probably benefit a lot of golfers who would probably go into this type of 3 wood. Again, adjustability, you could slightly open that face up if you dropped some loft off, but again, it's tough to maybe start reducing loft from a 14.5 degree just to get the club face in a square position. Oh, that's a joy to hit. That's just like probably 3 best 3 woods I've hit off the ground for a long, long time. Feels really comfortable. Great sound to that. Really good acoustic. Very, very consistent, those 3 shots. Again, just a little bit of left to right on that shape. So obviously the big talking point with the the whole RAD Speed sort of family is this radial weighting. So with the standard one, we've got 2 8-gram weights that split in the heel and the toe, which are fixed, as you can probably just see there. And then we've got a 7-gram weight, which is screwable, and that's placed in that back section of the club. So again, trying to help that higher launch, pulling that CG further back, getting that ball to launch. So this potentially is the easier to launch out of the 2. That's a good strike. Great, really enjoyed hitting that. That feels fantastic. Feels quite easy to get off the ground and launch. Let's move into the Big Tour off the ground. Okay, so same shaft now into the Big Tour head. So a little bit of a different appearance. We've now got it sort of completely matte black face, so much more sort of stealth looking, and straight away there that sits very, very square. So a better sitting club to my eye. Lovely, again, shape of the head is fantastic. Just looks different because obviously it's matte. We've got a slightly deeper face now in comparison to the standard RAD Speed. So obviously a little bit deeper face typically would sort of help to get the ball launched a little bit lower, a little bit faster on that club head speed, ball speed, and also then maybe a slightly lower spin model as well. Okay, that's a little bit heel, just look that right hand side, but again, acoustics, fantastic. Feels a little bit firmer off that club face. Hard to sort of explain. I'm going to hit a couple more shots there. It looks harder to launch off the ground. I think just the way, because it's a matte black and then black face, and we don't sort of see as much, it doesn't look to have as much loft on this compared to the standard one. Even though they're both 14.5, it just looks, maybe the depth of that face just gives you that appearance. It just looks like, you know, if I got a bit of an iffy lie on the fairway to hit this 3 wood, it just looks to be a little bit harder. Yeah, that's a slightly low, and it has obviously come out a bit lower on that particular shot. Nice and straight though. That's a nice shot. Yeah, definitely a lower ball flight compared to that standard one. Much hotter on the way that ball comes out. So just looking at again this radial weighting, we've got the 8 grams in that front section, heel and toe, they're fixed, same as what we've seen on the standard one, but now that 7 gram weight, which was positioned at the back on the standard one, in the Big Tour now is positioned forward. So obviously pushing that CG forward promotes lower launch, lower spin, maybe a little bit faster on that ball speed. So I think comparing these two straight away, even though you look at those dispersion rings and, you know, there's obviously a little bit more in it with the Tour, but distance-wise very similar to, you know, two decent finishes on both those clubs, it just feels a little bit harder to hit, not quite as easy. I'm thinking of different lies. This is perfectly flat, perfect lie every single time. Unfortunately on the golf course, we don't get that. But that is a strong ball flight. So if you're looking for a real strong ball flight, I think this is typically would suit maybe somebody like myself who's got a little bit of speed, that doesn't have the issues of getting that ball launching, and you want that penetrating flight. This is going to be a good option. I think this is always going to be a little bit tougher, as I say, off the ground compared to off the tee. Oh yeah, so that's a slight toe. I mean, it's done all right there, to be honest. You can feel that's not as forgiving on those missed hits with that weight more forward, felt more twist on that particular shot, and just dropped to, obviously the spin rate you can see it's just plummeted there. That's probably the only thing. If you've got to look at your missed strikes as a golfer, if you're a little bit of that toe striker, maybe going into the Big Tour, it's going to reduce spin. We know the toe strike's going to pull spin off. Weight forward in this particular head's going to pull spin off, and you just got to look at those missed strikes and how that then affects your ball flight. Right, so F1 shaft now back into the standard RAD, and we're going to hit 5 off the tee now. So see how this, if you're a golfer that may hit 3 wood a lot off the tee, you can see how these perform. Okay, so we're probably naturally going to see that slightly higher flight with that ball just slightly more elevated on that tee peg. Very low tee here, to be honest. That again was a nice shot to get underway with. Feels good. So the head size on the standard RAD Speed fairway wood is 100, well in the 3 wood is 169 cc. The Big Tour in the 3 wood is actually 173, so it's minimal in it. I can't see the difference of that head size between the two. The biggest change really is just obviously going from that gloss to the matte finish. Oh, that feels fantastic. Just feels such an easy club to hit. I mean, I absolutely arrowed that, struck that great. Yeah, really good. You see, just with that weight in that back section, you see maybe that spin just gets a little bit higher. Going to be interesting to look at the spin between these two options. Ooh, just a little bit of a toe one, slightly on that left-hand side. But again, it's flighted really nice. Really enjoyed hitting that. That feels fantastic. Love the look, love the sound. But let's move into the Big Tour. 5 shots off the tee with that. Right, so Big Tour off the tee. So I think this is where, for me, this club will really come into its own. I think it's going to be a good, potentially, well, we'll soon see, maybe a backup as a drive option if your driver's not quite on it and you want to sort of still get that distance out there with a little bit of a lower spin, then this could be a good option. It's a nice strike. A little bit left to right, but you can sort of see it to be a little bit more penetrating there. Just a look, yeah, spin not massively lower on that particular shot, but definitely a little bit more penetrating as a visual, looking at that down that ball, sort of down the range flight. There's a little protection from that slight right one. I've just slightly pulled that, but again, it is lower. So obviously you've got options to move this loft around. So, you know, if you are thinking of like a backup as a driver off the tee, you know, you can be moving this Big Tour down to 13 degrees. Obviously you are going to sacrifice a little bit of face angle, and I think when you do that, that face angle is going to be slightly more open. So if you've got a tendency of missing a little bit to the right, obviously you've got to be careful that you're not obviously going to bring that shot into play too much when starting to adjust that loft around. That's a solid strike, but again, see, I'm just sort of slightly opening up the left and the right compared to the standard one. So maybe even that little bit of that toed in of the standard RAD Speed was working for me, even though it's not quite as appealing to me as a visual. It didn't really go left. I think I just had one that went a bit left, but that was probably a bit more of a toe strike than anything. Yeah, there's a slight pull. Definitely more penetrating though, definitely lower on that ball flight. We'll hit one more shot and then we'll go and look at numbers against those two clubs. That's a really good strike. Okay, right, there's 10 shots hit. 5 were both off the ground, 5 both off the tee. Let's check a few numbers. Okay, so I've split the screen here. I've condensed all the shots I've hit into just the averages for each of those so I can fit it all on one screen. Obviously got the dispersion rings on the left as well. So we'll start off with off the ground. So the white was the RAD Speed off the ground, which was ultra consistent. That just felt fantastic to hit off the ground. Very, very easy. You can see 3.8 on that spin, launching at 12 degrees. Decent sort of ball speed, you know, 2.5 to carry, but very, very consistent, wasn't it? Even those subtle little changes of strike, it was really, really good. Moving into the Big Tour off the ground was quite different, wasn't it? Club head speed, as you'd expect, exactly the same. Ball speed a little bit faster, okay, so that weight more forward. Slightly deeper on that club face has generated me a little bit more ball speed, but you can see it's launched lower and it's spun much lower. It felt a little bit harder, or it felt like I was going to be punished a little bit more. And you can see dispersion rings just increased a little bit inconsistent from the front to the back, as well as a little bit left, right. And I'm not bad at all, to be honest, but just felt a little bit harder. And as I said, if I got into a little bit of an iffy lie on the fairway, I'll jump at the standard RAD Speed all day long over the Big Tour. If you're an off the ground 3-wood player, you tend to play that 3-wood off the ground a lot, then obviously the standard one I think could be a better option. Again, it really depends on your delivery, doesn't it? And then moving into it off the tee. So again, standard one in the purple, just have that little bit of that pulley one, but again, consistent front to back dispersion, 1.5, 1.8, launched at 11.6, spun at 4,000. So you can see I actually launched it a touch higher off the ground than I did off the tee, which is surprising, isn't it? And then looking at the Big Tour, again, extra bit of ball speed. Did swing that a little bit quicker actually on that last batch of shots. Didn't feel like it wasn't intentional, but got a little bit more ball speed as you'd expect. But again, launched a little bit lower, spun a little bit lower. Has gone a little bit further, but again, it was a bit easier off the tee as you'd expect. So if you're, again, going back, if you're hitting this off the tee, then the Big Tour I think is going to be a good option. I don't think it's a real good fairway golf club, or it's harder. I think you've just got to be a lot more precise with a bit of speed to get that to work off the ground. Right, okay, so interesting test between the two fairway wood options from Cobra. So both look very similar and are very similar on that head size, slightly difference of that depth of the club face, and obviously some difference of that weighting position, and that made quite a big difference on both off the ground as well as off the tee with those two batch of shots in this test. So two clubs that are doing two different jobs there. I think you know, if you're going for a friendly higher launching, a little bit more ease of use, then obviously the standard RAD Speed is going to be a really, really good option. I loved hitting that. That felt really good to hit. As I say, if I got an iffy lie, I'd be so much more confident with that as opposed to the Big Tour. If it's off the tee, then I think the Big Tour is maybe a good option, but you've got to test these, put these against side by side, like I've done in this particular test, and maybe even get it out on that golf course and put them in those different lies and test it as well. That's also sometimes an important one with sort of fairway woods. Okay, post comments down below. Let me know your thoughts between those two clubs. Two good clubs. They sound great. They look great. Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts as always. Appreciate you watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. If you have, thanks very much for your support, much appreciated. Hopefully catch up with you all very soon.